everyone. Babula and I have returned once again in this lunar cycle to talk about the full moon in Pisces. But we're actually in Virgo season, aren't we, Babula? So we thought we might talk about that a little bit first. So do you want to take it away?
Okay, so Virgo's become a very interesting sign to me, and I think that's because I feel it's one of those signs that's very misunderstood, or is often gets a bit of a bad rap. You know, that sense of Virgo being hypercritical and hyper fussy and neurotic and overworked and all those sorts of things. And I'm not denying that those come with the territory of Virgo at all. But like every sign, you know, the signs all operate on different levels of development. And so there is that expression of Virgo, you know, it's an earth sign, so it's very hands-on. It's about, you know, all things earthy and practical and so on. And underlying that urge to clean and get things perfect is a natural ability to analyze, discriminate, break things apart into their small component parts to see what's not working and what needs fixing and repairing.
Mm.
And we need people like that. I mean, let's face it. And so they're coming in many ways from this place of refined skills and abilities.
Mm.
So it's a sign of refinement, and skills and technique is a very important word in Virgo. You know, if we're going to do anything well, we need to learn a certain amount of technique and develop skills so that we can be good at whatever that is that we're doing.
And offering it to other people too. And
that's right.
I'm thinking that I think I've read that is it dentists are often Virgos?
Well, they would be. It's very particular work.
Yes, and engineers and doctors because of the health side of it, you know. So
that's right. Yeah. That's right. So, you know, have to be well trained, skilled, and there's a certain sort of perfectionist quality. And I've met so many nurses and healers and people who work in various aspects of healing and medicine, both you know, within the system, but also in the more natural health healing modalities. Always you're going to see Virgo.
Yeah, well, you know, my going the other way though with the exacting, my first husband was an accountant and my second husband was an engineer.
Yes, Virgo.
Both Virgos, yeah.
That's right. So they did the training, you see. Virgo requires, see, it follows after Leo. And Virgo has the humility to say, you're the expert, I want to learn from you. So I will humble myself, if you like, and understand that I really don't know. I want you to train me. And that requires for all of us a certain amount of humility, doesn't it?
Yes, yes. Which is completely opposite to Leo.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Leo's making these magnificent proclamations.
That's right.
Virgo's saying, how can I serve you? How can I serve
you? How can I serve you? How can I help?
Yes.
You know, they roll up their sleeves and they get on with the job. So Virgos are kept very busy. You know, I often say to people who come in with a strong Virgo signature, you've come here to work and to do a job. You have a job to do. Yeah. And they go, yeah, that's right. And, you know, that can show in all kinds of different ways. But this amazing refined sensitivity and sensibility to be able to see things in very, very fine, subtle ways. And to, in a very practical way, it's an earth sign, set about improving, repairing, healing, fixing, getting it right. Like, you go to a car mechanic, you want someone who's going to do a really good job.
Yeah.
You know, and really have good skills and abilities and an ability to analyze and figure out what's actually wrong. So, you know, this is where Virgo comes into its own very much. On a more sort of evolved spiritual level, Virgo gets very interesting, and it's very connected to the to the divine mother and the divine feminine.
Mm.
You know, and they say in esoteric astrology, which is a different system, same planets and signs, of course, but based on the 7 rays, they actually give the moon rulership of Virgo. And it is this sense of, you know, the divine feminine, the mother as a pure vessel for the divine child, and this strong sense of devotion and service.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is this quality of devotion that can come through a sort of a more evolved expression of Virgo. And it is what you said before. It's how can I be of service? How can I help? And that does require humility.
Which is really interesting, because with this full moon in Pisces coming this week, which is also quite mystical and spiritual too, isn't it? So there's like an intermingling of those two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to really open that up when we go there in a few minutes, because I think that's very, very relevant. So, you know, the sun is in Leo, is in Virgo now. Mercury, as most people will be aware, very few people on the planet anymore have not heard of Mercury retrograde. Mercury turned retrograde on the 24th of August at 21 degrees of Virgo, the same day that the sun moved into Virgo. So we're certainly in a very strong Virgo period now. And of course, Mercury rules Virgo. It rules Virgo and Gemini.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Mercury is very strong. When a planet's in its own sign, it has a lot of power and strength.
Yeah.
And it can really, you know, function at its best, if you like. So our minds are busy sorting, sifting, analyzing, purifying. Like I've just all of a sudden, we talked a bit about this last time, but I'm noticing I'm sort of cleaning up my diet. Just my diet's pretty clean, but I've gotten a bit, you know, and I was starting to feel it in my body. So I can just see there's these small changes I'm making, and it's happening quite naturally. Over the weekend, Mars came to the end of Virgo and is now in Libra. But while it was at the very end, I could have done something different, but I had this overwhelming need to spend pretty much the whole weekend cleaning, sorting, getting rid of stuff.
Yes.
You know? And it just felt so satisfying. It felt so good to have it finally done. It had been bothering me for ages.
On a different bent, but the same idea, I'm just getting this vision, as I do while we talk about these things. It's like Mercury retrograde and Virgo. I'm thinking like I could just see a parent with a child, and they're saying there's work to be done before you can go play. Like, is your room tidy? I don't think so. Go back and have another look, you know, that sort of thing.
That's right. And I love, you know, relating this to children, because if you watch a child with quite a bit of Virgo, they will naturally, not that they're all necessary. People tell me they have a really untidy Virgo teenager in the house, but that will change as they get older. But by and large, even a young child who has Virgo strong in the chart, you'll see these tendencies to be very, very particular. Can drive a parent crazy. They might be extremely particular about what they eat and don't eat, about what they wear and don't wear, about where to put the toy, where not, you know, that kind of thing. It's that very finely tuned particular quality.
Well, that's from the child. That's from the child's side. I was thinking about the Virgo parent, like, go back and have another look at your room.
Right. That's right.
That Mercury retrograde in there.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So while Mercury strong in Virgo is retrograde now for these 3 weeks, and I'm experiencing this myself, we're doing a lot of reflection, and we're analyzing things from the past. I'm finding and look, I'll share this because the other day, the day the sun went into Virgo and Mercury turned retrograde, I went to coffee with the yoga girls after yoga, And our teacher is also a healer. And after coffee, I just said, have you got any sessions free this afternoon? Because I'd had sessions with her before. And she said, yes. So I went back, same afternoon, was very in the moment. And what came out of that, I just apparently spontaneously asked her about a detox program that I knew she ran. And I said, tell me more about that. And just immediately I just knew I was going to do it. So I started it on the day the sun went in. And I didn't plan that, and Mercury went. And part of what's coming up is old patterns already are coming up.
So
it's quite a full program.
Yeah. I was going to say, what date was that again?
That was on Thursday.
Thursday.
Right?
Yes.
So this is how things go, and we don't have to be sort of consciously and deliberately planning our lives according to what's happened with the planets. It actually just happens.
Yes. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? We just fall into line with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've found that so many times.
Yeah. There's a resonance. And so now I'm embarking on this program while Mercury's retrograde in Virgo, which is where my South Node is. And so it's already I'm getting more fine insights into certain things. And a lot of it's coming up from my even past life stuff,
Yeah.
sort of falling into place. This is Mercury retrograde in Virgo, can be very helpful.
Yes. And I ran a workshop on the Saturday, and it was about the throat chakra, which is about communication, which took a few of us in the workshop back to times in our life about our communication. So here we are talking about, how we might have been shut down and suppressed, and not just in families, but in society for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
But we're reflecting back on that and reassessing those experiences. And then for me on the Sunday, I was still processing it myself, so yeah, that just comes right into a line with that.
Absolutely.
Mercury retrograde and Virgo. And I was remembering details of things too that had happened.
Yes.
Which I'd forgotten. I'm going, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
So
I was there, and the conversations were kind of bringing all this forward for all of us. And yeah, it's really intriguing, and it can get very fine and very subtle, can't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So Mercury retrograde can be annoying. I am the first to acknowledge that. Can be really frustrating because you get all these glitches. It can be very frustrating.
Yeah. Plans can be stalled and delayed. Yeah.
Yeah. But the real underlying purpose and gift of it is this, in Virgo, there's sifting and sorting and refining, and it can be very healing. Virgo is the number one sign of healing.
And I think you have to slow down to do that too, because Virgo is an earth sign as well. And things don't happen fast with Virgo energy. It takes its time to think things through, to feel it, or for things to filter through, I should say.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's a time to with that Mercury retrograde, it's a time to slow down, take time to adjust, be flexible, practice patience, that sort of double check details. But we can't do all of that until we slow down.
That's right. And as you say that, it reminds me of, we will often miss very important subtle messages if we're not taking time to be still and quiet. Mercury retrograde, do we need to have all those some conversations might be really important and relevant, but we might also need to take time out to just sit and be really quiet and pay attention in a very fine, subtle way. Because it is very fine, this energy. It took me a long time to realize that, and so I started to really tune into it. On a fine energy level, it's very, because it's opposite Pisces, these two signs are very fine and very subtle.
Yeah.
So that's with us now. And depending on what house in your natal chart, for those who know their chart, have a chart, Yeah, that's the area of life that this is going to be operating in, this Mercury retrograde.
Mm.
Mm.
And then comes along this dreamy full moon in
That's
Pisces.
right.
Oh, saying, chill out, Virgo.
That's right.
Don't get focused on all the details. Look up into the sky, the open spaces, the imagination.
Exactly. Just let go, relax,
Yes.
As I've heard people say, take a chill pill, whatever.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Virgo's very, very busy. I've got things to do.
Yes. Pull your head out of the details and, not only just look at the big picture, but while you're there, connect with your feelings about it.
That's right.
That's the other thing, because it's quite a sensitive, emotional sign.
That's right. So it can feel like in a push and a pull. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I get on with the job? Should I go and just sit under a tree and just gaze at the sky?
Mm.
Well, why not do both?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, when we're in a full moon in those polar opposite signs, it's how do we acknowledge and allow and have space for both, and see maybe how in that they might be working together, because polar opposite signs are and can work together.
Yes. Yeah. So it's getting that fine balance between
very fine. It's
between not getting lost, having dreams but not getting lost in them, so that you can still do what you need to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of something like I saw my osteopath today, and she does very, very fine, beautiful work, but she has tremendous skill. She's highly trained, very skillful, knows her stuff. So that's the Virgo. And I'm not talking about a chart, I'm just speaking about these principles. So that's the Virgo. She's got all the skill in her technique. I'm amazed at some of her techniques, but she is so intuitive and so sensitive. Her hands are so both operating, you see, the skill and the intuition. Same with an artist or anyone who does really fine work. There's skill and there's intuition. Both are operating. And I think that's same with healers. They've done the training, but so often they're actually coming from their intuition, but the training and the technique is all there at their fingertips.
Yeah.
And for all of us who do any kind of healing therapeutic work, as you and I do in various, it is a combination, isn't it? It's absolutely the combination.
Yeah, it's about knowledge, but then intuitively imparting it at the right time for the right person for the right reasons.
That's right.
And that's just pure gut feeling.
That's right. And sometimes it feels like it's pure magic.
Yes, that's right, when it happens. Yeah.
So this full moon is on this is east coast of Australia, of course, 31st of August, which is Thursday this week. It'll be exact at 11:35 a.m. That's the actual moment. But of course, the moon's already growing. I was out last night, and she's getting fuller by the day, by the night. And so things to note about this full moon, which will be with us over those few days while the moon goes through Pisces, is that, yes, people's emotions, which are always heightened at a full moon anyway, maybe especially heightened because it's a Pisces full moon. Many people might experience this as feeling very emotionally sensitive, a bit weepy, or a bit delicate even at times, perhaps a bit overwhelmed, just needing a lot of sleep or rest, which isn't always easy when there's a full moon. Sometimes many people find their sleep is disturbed. That doesn't happen to me quite so much these days. I don't quite know why. I might have one night like that. But what's particularly interesting is that I want to show this because it really stands out. So there's the moon at 7 degrees of Pisces, directly opposite the sun at 7 of Virgo. And look who's sitting on the full moon.
Yeah, Saturn.
Saturn. That's back to front on the screen. But Saturn retrograde, heading back towards the very beginning of Pisces, very close, pretty much right on this full moon. So that can be both challenging, absolutely. It might feel, some people might experience this as being a bit heavy, a bit emotionally heavy. They might be feeling a bit depressed, a bit low, emotionally very tired. That might be the case for some. Some people might be finding, if they're actually doing something that is very soulful and meaningful to them, they might actually find that very same energy to be very, very helpful. It might be very constructive. Like, I'll use the example of art, perhaps.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or doing some kind of spiritual work or creative work. And the Saturn can help to bring some focus. But with Pisces, always there's an aspect of having to let go and just allow the process to flow in its own way.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of, because Pisces is quite artistic as well. You know, you have the painters, the singers, the sculptors.
All the musicians.
Artistic expression.
Yeah.
And with that Saturn there, it could actually bring it into it's not just in your vision and in your imagination. You can actually bring it into the real world.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Give it actual shape. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was looking up a few of the, famous Piscean people too. And like George Washington, who was, the president of the committee that formed the Constitution. I mean, that took imagination and intuition about, does that feel right? Like, what should we do here? Albert Einstein was another one, Michelangelo, Chopin. In more modern times, there was Steve Jobs and George Harrison, all creative people who were inspired and had imagination. And yeah, it just sort of shows you what that energy is all about.
That's right. And often, visionaries,
yes,
will have a strong dollop of that in their parts. Yeah. Because it's like the knowledge, the inspiration, whatever it is, and they will experience that, is that it feels like it comes from somewhere else. It's coming through. It's not me.
Yeah.
It has that sort of quality about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having, Saturn on a full moon can feel challenging. So if some people experience that, I would recommend, as much as your circumstances allow, to take it easy if that's available. Some people, circumstances may not allow that. But I think what's really important is to allow the emotional body to move and have some kind of expression. That's really important when the element of water is up. Or it could be something like some kind of spiritual practice that you do. This could be an amazing time to draw on that and use it. The sun's in Virgo, Saturn's on the full moon in Pisces opposite that sun. Like, actually make the time to sit on the meditation cushion, whatever it is, and do it, and allow yourself to really be with whatever's happening. Be very present.
So in the big picture, on the world stage,
right,
which I always love to go there.
Me too. I do too.
Yeah. So how would you see, what are the possibilities, or how would you see what could be an example of that playing itself out, do you think?
There could be water events, because Pisces is a water sign, but it's like an oceanic water sign, like lots of water. So that's a possibility. And Saturn there could manifest in some parts of the world as the challenges of, major water events. So that's definitely a possibility. The issue of deception is one of the shadow qualities of Pisces. All the smoke screens of lies and deceptions, and everything keeps shifting and changing, and nobody's talking straight. Right? Whereas Virgo wants to analyze and go, wait a minute, you just said, here, I've got some data here for you,
yes.
Which doesn't fit what you're saying.
Yeah.
So things like that could be really surfacing, but in particular, Saturn can be showing up, of course, as an oppressive force of control.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and Pisces as the last sign of the zodiac and as mutable water, Pisces' natural method is just to flow freely. Think of water. It might have the banks of the river, but within that, it's moving and flowing. And Saturn might feel like someone's put a dam in the path. I was
going to say that. Yeah.
Right. Now, that can also translate as some strong emotions and feelings might be rising, and are we going to stop them and block them? Saturn on the Pisces full moon, because it seems inappropriate, or there'll be consequences, or we'll be judged, or it's not allowed, right? So I think that's, and be interesting to see how that might show up in the world. But I think in terms of the world at large, we all know there's so much going on. We're also in a massively retrograde period right now.
Yeah.
There's now that Mercury's retrograde and Venus is still retrograde, and almost all the other planets are retrograde as well. There's hardly anything that's not. I think I'm just checking Mars and Jupiter, which is going to go retrograde fairly soon, is the only one that's not.
Jupiter is the only one that's not at the moment.
Mars is the only one that's not. Jupiter is currently, but it's not going to stay that way for long. Jupiter's going to turn retrograde on the 5th of September. Yep, which is only about a week away.
Yeah.
So we're well and truly deep in a retrograde period. So that's individually and collectively. It's old information surfacing, old stuff surfacing that needs to be addressed, looked at. I'm sort of noticing that in the field, actually.
Me too. Yeah.
How on Facebook you get these, memories from the same date 2 years ago, 4 years ago. And often I see them, I go, oh, yeah, I remember that. You just reminded me, what I've just noticed in the last week, almost everyone that shows up, I'm compelled to repost it because it's still really relevant. And it kind of takes me back to what was going on then.
Yes, yeah.
That's so interesting, isn't it?
It is. Same for me with my field of research. It's like I'm going, this is coming up now, but we looked at this in the 50s and the 60s and the 90s, and it's coming up again. That's interesting. Doing a circuit,
Yeah. So I always feel like, when there's retrograde energy going on, yes, there's a return and a revision and a reevaluation and all of that. But I think that's so that there can be kind of reintegration and integration of what's been going on just prior to that.
Yeah.
Because life is moving so fast now, so fast. Time is warping. And we're processing so much. And I think these retrograde periods give us a time to kind of catch our breath, but to certainly digest some of this.
Yeah, and I think it's also to go back and have a look at what we missed the first time through that cycle. Because I'm going, wow, I didn't think of that. Like this is back in the 90s. Think, Oh, yeah. That makes sense because there's a longer time for context, you know?
Yes, context, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so while Mercury's retrograde in Virgo, that really emphasizes this sifting with a fine-tooth comb,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And I used the word digestion before. Virgo is the primary sign to do with digestion, which is why it's all about health and illness and healing.
Yeah.
And so that issue of digesting, how are we digesting information, news, life, our food, right? You know, I think that's very relevant metaphor for this particular period.
Yeah, how's this going down?
That's right. We're getting indigestion. That's right. Do we want to throw up? Are we getting stuck in our throat?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
It is fascinating. Wow. So what's next?
Well, let's see. Okay, so the full moon is on the 31st of August, which then, of course, brings us into September. And overall, September isn't quite as dramatic as the last few months have been. Like the last few months have just had big thing after big, like day after day, just bam, 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 like that. It feels it's not quite as intense and strong. I think the main theme is that there's a lot of retrograde planets, and I'd say that's the overall kind of vibe of it all. But there's going to be a few changes with direction. So on the 4th of September, Venus comes out of her 6-week retrograde phase. She's now just in the last, I think yesterday morning, and maybe the morning before a tiny bit, she began to appear as the morning star.
Yeah.
You know, she closed that evening star cycle, joined the sun, and is now the morning. So there's an energetic shift that's occurred with Venus, all about love, relationships, and our values and what our heart truly values. And I, maybe because I am a Venus morning star person, when I was born, I can relate to it. But just tuning into her reappearance now as a morning star, I like the idea that Venus sort of leads the day ahead of the sun. You know, that principle of love is leading the way. She shows up now first in the morning before the sun does. So Venus turns direct at 12 degrees of Leo. She won't leave Leo until the 9th of October, when she'll go into Virgo. So she's still got a whole month, the whole of September. She'll have turned direct on the 4th, but she'll remain in Leo for the whole of September. And then on the 5th, the following day, Jupiter turns retrograde in Taurus, which is a Venus sign. So Jupiter will be retrograde through to the 31st of December. So he literally turns direct on New Year's Eve, and all the while is in the sign of Taurus. So now go on.
No, I'm just saying Taurus, yeah.
Yeah. When Jupiter is retrograde, and some people will have Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart, what I find with that one is that, because a main theme of Jupiter is our quest for truth. You know, what is truth? I'm looking for meaning and purpose and truth. And in the chart, the sign, the house, and everything is sort of tells us a lot about how we go about that and what that means to us. When it's retrograde, we have to do a lot of digging and reassessing. And I find a lot of people who are born with that, at some point in their young life, they will usually reject the religion or the truth that they were given when they were young. Might be through religion or the family philosophy or the culture's philosophy and belief system, which is Jupiter. And they literally reject the whole thing. So I have nothing more to do with that. That's not me. It's all wrong for me, which may be absolutely true. But at some point, they undertake their own quest for what is actually true for me. And that may take them on a really major and deep journey. Right?
Yeah. Interesting. On a more practical note, though, I'm thinking about Jupiter retrograding, with Jupiter, expansive Jupiter, retrograding in earthy Taurus.
Yeah.
It's spring.
Yes,
Like,
it is.
everything blossoms, and it's a spring season. So
Yes, it
it's
is.
expansion of growth in the earth.
Yes.
For us
And
in the southern hemisphere, anyway.
that's right.
Yeah.
So for those, always when a planet's changing direction, for those few days, particularly for the slow moving one, like Jupiter's presence might be very strong, and it might be showing up in the world through Taurus issues, land, farming, agriculture, food supplies, money, banking, those kinds of issues. And then as it kind of continues over those 4.5 to 5 months in the retrograde motion, we're processing. And the other thing I find about a great thing to do when planets are retrograde is educate ourselves, get informed, do research, dig around, try and look into history in the past, and then when the planet, whatever it is moving forward again, okay, now I'm ready to move on because I understand something more now and more deeply. So this could be a time when we're having to deal with financial issues in our life and make some choices, or come to terms with certain issues, Yeah. Get busy in the garden growing food.
Well, this is what I'm thinking.
That's right.
Planting more things, Yeah. Lovely time of year.
Oh, it's just sublime. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
In the summer. I was hearing a conversation in the car on the radio as I was out and about this morning about spring seems to have come early, and is it our imagination or real? So they were talking to various people about this who would know about these things, and one of them was a beekeeper. He's the head beekeeper at the Botanical Gardens in Brisbane. And he said, no, it's true. It's true. He observes the bee activity. And he's saying, yes, it's all happening a few weeks earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting,
well,
huh?
Thank goodness, because we had where we are in Southeast Queensland, I think we had a long, cold winter.
Felt like that to me, but that's probably because I don't like winter.
No, and I don't mind winter, but it just felt really long and really cold, and it's still cold in the morning.
In the morning it is, yeah. No, I'm happy with these warm, sunny days. Delighted. So on the 4th, Venus turns direct. On the 5th, Jupiter turns retrograde, and on the 6th, Mercury retrograde in Virgo will be exactly conjunct the Sun. So that there's some interesting energies on that in that first week of September.
Right.
Then on the 16th, Mercury will turn direct at 8 degrees of Virgo. And I know people have different opinions, and some people say it's all hooey, and some people say they love Mercury retrograde, which is very real. I know people who don't have a bother at all about Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
I, for one, am always a bit like, oh, thank God for that, when he turns direct again. Oh, by the way, I also want to comment on Mercury retrograde, particularly saying a sign like Virgo, but I find in general, our health can be a little more vulnerable when Mercury's retrograde, because he rules Virgo. He's got a connection to health and healing and illness, and he was always depicted holding the caduceus. Right, and Virgo's a sign of health. So I think it is a good time to be really paying attention to our physical health.
And I wanted to say that too before about with the full moon in Pisces, feet and toes.
Yes.
Look out for kicking your toe. Looking after your feet.
Yes, these things show up sometimes in the most basic, fundamental of ways, exactly like that. Last year, when Mars was retrograde in Gemini for ages, I kept injuring my fingers.
Yeah.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Mars, injuries, it just, not again, it was
Yeah.
burns, cuts, and yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes it literally manifests in those very literal ways.
Mm.
And then that leads us on to the new moon, which will of course occur at 21 degrees and 58 of Virgo.
Virgo, Virgo, Virgo.
Virgo. So as you can
What
see,
date's that?
that's on the 15th.
On the 15th.
Yes. Now, oh yes, because I didn't write my notes up properly. So on the 15th, it's the new moon, and on the 16th, the day after, Mercury turns direct in Virgo.
Okay. Yeah.
So that will be a particularly Virgo couple of days for sure.
I feel weighed down by the details already.
I know the details and the to-do lists.
Yeah. It's just, I love to-do lists. I have my diary, my week to an opening, I have my weekly list on the fridge.
I know. Well,
to-do list. Oh my gosh.
I know. It just helps us to function. And
well, some people.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Enough people carry it around in their head. I really don't.
Oh, I can't. No, I can't.
No, I don't want to.
No, I don't want to. I'm the same. I don't want to either. I don't want all that in my head. So you can see it's not a complex week astrologically in the sense of, a big sequence of major things happening. I would say the major theme, what I'll come back to something I didn't bring in, is really about Virgo, and to understand this simple fundamental thing of Virgo is about analyzing, purifying, repairing, healing, and improving, and that will show up in all kinds of ways. It can be our body, our house, our car, our way of thinking, all sorts of way. How are we clearing away excess clutter, right? It's so satisfying when we do that. It's so satisfying. And clearing the space so that we can see more clearly. And then the other thing, of course, is just this very strong theme of retrograde planets. So if anyone's feeling an urge or an impulse to do any kind of healing work that's about their past, old relationships, their childhood, past lives, anything like that, this is an amazing time for that. It's all kind of coming quite naturally. And I think it's a perfect time to do any kind of, regressive work or any kind of work where those old things can come up.
Yes.
To be healed and released,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So that's it, really. Oh, one thing I did want to go back to was on the 29th. I don't think I really mentioned this. Uranus will turn retrograde.
When is this?
On the 29th of August.
Oh, okay. So
we've got a week right at the end of August and the first week of September where 3 planets change direction. So that can sometimes, when you get that all happening at once, it can sometimes feel a bit crunchy and a bit chaotic and a bit like what's happening, particularly with Uranus, it can sometimes feel a little jarring and a little chaotic.
We've been through some of that and now it's going back.
Yes.
Yeah, going back over that.
So he will be retrograde until the end of January. Then, like we've had in the last couple of years, and it's not like this every year, it's just how they're all lined up currently, we'll have a few months in the early part of the year where nothing's retrograde.
Oh, that's lovely. We're all having a holiday anyway.
That's right.
Just remind me what sign Uranus is retrograde in?
Taurus.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think yes.
So that means the 2 slower moving planets in the sign of Taurus, Jupiter and Uranus, these days, are both going to turn retrograde pretty much within a week of each other. So Taurus, the foundations, the fundamentals, money, the body, our values, land, food, agriculture,
Mm.
yeah, banking.
That explains why we've been seeing these earthquakes. I mean, we've always got earthquakes, but they're making it into the news. I think where was the latest one? I can't remember now, but yeah, there's been a series of them over the last fortnight. Yeah.
Has there?
Uranus
Okay.
and Taurus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Uranus is the planet that governs earthquakes and
Mm.
seismic activity and shocks and things like that.
Mm.
The other thing, of course, about Taurus is that spiritually and at that higher level of expression, it has that Buddha quality of being very still and very grounded and allowing everything to move around you and being somehow really just grounded in what is, and just this is what it is, and just holding that. It's a sign that has a tremendous capacity to hold.
Yes, it's that very stabilizing influence, isn't it?
Very stabilizing. Even when seismic Uranus is uprooting things, underlying all of that, in someone who's very conscious and is aware of these things, there's still a capacity to be very present, somehow hold all of that. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, there we go. There's some things to digest.
Digestion is going to be a key theme. Digestion in all
Let's
kinds of ways.
digest that in a Virgoan style.
Yes.
So, well, thank you, Babula. That's really interesting. Again, of course. And I just really love how, these things play out in the planetary movements and then it affects things on Earth. It's just, as above, so below. It's just that wonderful connection, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable.
And like you say, we seem to just do that in these things intuitively anyway, but it's not really that. It's the planetary influences.
That's right. And we're all aligned with, and it's all resonance, isn't it? And it made it very evident to me years ago with astrology. I sort of knew it anyway because we hear it from the mystics that all is one. Astrology has shown me that very clearly, like everything is so interconnected.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and so planets move and we're having experiences and responses and things are happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, Astro peeps. Straight from the astrologer's mouth. So thank you again for all that information.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it. And please remember to, if you enjoyed this, to like, subscribe, leave comments. And until next time, stay safe. And we will see you in another 2 weeks for the next moon cycle.
We will.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.